My name's Tina Pizzavento. I'm a continence and pelvic health physiotherapist. I'm just going to have a little chat about looking after your pelvic floor after you've had a baby. We know that 1 in 3 women who have ever had a baby actually leak urine, and again, we know also that leaking isn't normal and it can be cured or at least managed. So different contributing factors that may cause pelvic floor problems after having a baby is maybe having a bigger baby. There might be a longer second stage or a difficult vaginal delivery. Now, it's obviously when after pelvic floor or vaginal delivery, there can be some soft tissue injury, and it's just like a sporting injury. We need to rehabilitate that muscle correctly. So there's a few kind of pointers I want to go over before we talk about the pelvic floor exercises specifically. It is important to still provide, just like a soft tissue injury, compression to the area. So we always encourage women to wear supportive underwear. So a good supportive gusset area as well as supportive area in the abdomen too. So good supportive underwear that you can get at any department store. They don't have to be extremely expensive, specialized ones, but just nice high supportive underwear. The other thing that's really important that often it's very hard to do at times is to make sure you do get a rest at home and rest horizontal. So not just sitting up and having a rest, but lie down so that the actual pelvis is being elevated. And that means that there's less strain on the pelvic floor area. Swelling that may be building up can dissipate or move away, and that helps with the healing as well. So we obviously want the compression, so things are shortened, just like you splint an ankle when you sprain your ankle. We elevate so that we get rid of swelling, and we also do gentle pelvic floor exercises. So those first 6 weeks, we encourage, again, gentle pelvic floor exercises, gentle tummy exercises, and walking is comfortable, nothing high impact. The other important thing is to avoid constipation. So particularly if you're breastfeeding, you need to maintain adequate fluid. So drink enough water so that you don't get constipated. We don't want that straining of your bowels, which puts pressure on your pelvic floor as well. Obviously fruit, vegetables, etc., just to make sure that you're going regularly and not straining. Try and avoid heavy lifting. I know at times it can be hard, like getting those prams in and out of the boots, etc. But try and break up your loads. Even with the washing, maybe make smaller loads. So do 2 little trips. Your shopping bags, have less in the shopping bag. So no heavy lifting. And when you do have to lift the baby or the pram or whatever in and out of the car, make sure you contract your pelvic floor. So squeeze and lift your pelvic floor to support that bladder neck so that you don't put pressure there. The other thing that's really important too is like trying to avoid any high impact exercise like we talked about. We've already talked about obviously the constipation, but making sure that we do those exercises correctly as well. So I'm just going to talk about the pelvic floor. Now, maybe in antenatal classes, you might have had some education on this as well. This is obviously a female pelvis. The 2 halves of the pelvis join at the front to what we call the pubic symphysis, and the spine comes down behind to the sacrum or the lower back to the tailbone. Inside the pelvis, we've got the bladder, the uterus, and then the bowel and the rectum behind there. And then the 2 layers of the pelvic floor muscles are supporting those pelvic organs. Now the 2 layers, the outer layer is made up of more of a circular muscle at the front around the bladder, neck and the vagina, and the back circular muscle is around the anus. Then we have the deeper pelvic floor muscles, which is the basic part of the floor. So the 2 actions you should be feeling when you contract those pelvic floor muscles is a squeeze and then a lift. Okay, so those circular muscles at the bottom are producing a squeezing sensation, and the deeper muscles should be a lifting sensation, and that's what you should be feeling. We shouldn't feel our bottom muscles contract. We shouldn't feel our inner thighs contract. We shouldn't hold our breath and clench the upper part of our chest or our faces. We may feel a little bit of tension in your lower tummy muscles, but it should be predominantly that deeper pelvic floor. So you shouldn't even notice that you're actually doing the exercising. So it's basically a squeeze and a lift and holding that contraction. So you need to hold that contraction for as long as you feel comfortable and breathe at the same time. So it may be 3 seconds early on after you've had the baby, and that's fine. And then make sure you relax the muscle and then you repeat it again. So you repeat it in a row as many times as you're able to do. So for example, one individual may hold it for 3 seconds, relax it and repeat it 6 times, and that might be their maximum. Another person might be able to hold it for 5 seconds and repeat it 8 times. Whatever your maximum ability is what you should be aiming for, and trying to do that 2 to 3 times a day. Now, when to do the exercises, obviously being a new mum, often you're learning lots about the baby, and there's settling times, etc. We try and encourage women maybe to do it when they're breastfeeding, so they are sitting and relaxing, and aim to do it then. Or maybe when you're having a rest and the baby's asleep, but try and at least allocate those 2 to 3 times a day, and to do that forever and ever. Okay, so basically it's something that you need to get into your part of the day for the rest of your life. As I mentioned before too, make sure that you can track that pelvic floor every time you pick up the baby, and cough, sneeze, etc. Now, in regards to exercise, we talked about gentle exercise for those first 6 weeks and no bouncing, high impact or jumping activity. Returning to any form of exercise, for instance, running or netball or any other sport, we usually don't encourage that till at least 4 months postnatally. We really need the pelvic floor to be in very good condition to be able to do that high impact. That high impact exercise can put quite repetitive strain on tissues that are still healing. So 4 months is the minimum. And just in that time before, just gradually building up your exercise with your pelvic floor and general exercise as well. Okay. If you have difficulty isolating your pelvic floor muscles, or do you have any continuing symptoms, for instance, any urinary urgency or leakage, or bowel urgency or leakage, or even any vaginal bulge or heaviness around the pelvis, or even having difficulty actually weeing at times, that's when you should actually source some help, and that may be through going to see your GP and asking for a referral to a pelvic health physiotherapist, or referral to Golden Valley Health Women's Health Physiotherapist or Continence clinic, because you may need a little bit more help to isolate the muscles correctly and get you back on track to progress those exercises.